Hello, and welcome to the A's and B's of Horror. I'm your host, Jim, and with me, as always, is
Mark,
oh
I
my,
don't have many syllables in my name, so I can say it.
no, you don't. But usually, you pull it out a little bit more than that. I mean,
I
that was
like to
kind of
do a little
a bad
different
job.
for our audience every time. They want more.
Okay, so Mark, what are we doing today?
Oh, so we are taking a voyage into outer space.
Where can our listeners enjoy their voyage?
Every podcast streaming site
That's true. That is true.
and
And if they want to interact directly with us, they could join us in our Facebook group or follow us on TikTok.
whatever that is.
So, Mark, what movies are we going to explore today?
Okay, so our A movie is Event Horizon.
Dun
And
dun
Jim,
dun.
what is our B movie?
Oh God. Our B movie is Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah, it's not the Pink Floyd album, thankfully.
No, it is not, and I got that question a lot, just so you know.
It's much better than that piece of crap.
that
I can't.
I think that would be debatable depending on who you're asking.
Yeah, probably, most people love Pink Floyd. I can't stand it.
Yeah, and that's okay.
I feel like Jim.
No, do you? It's going to get you two hairy knuckles. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I wonder whose haircut has upset you this week.
So I guess we'll jump right into Event Horizon, and I have my first question.
hmm
Do you recall the year this movie takes place?
So it's 2047.
That's 25 years from now. We're going to be deep space traveling, sir.
Well, never mind that. Do you notice that we'll get to it? What year Dark Side of the Moon is set at?
I do.
Ooh, we'll
I
get to
do have
that.
that down also.
This is exciting.
Yes.
That documentary, Dark Side.
Documentary. It's something, all right.
And as I don't know, maybe I'll just do it whenever we go through Dark Side of the Moon, but and we'll kind of get to that. But it really is to me like a prototype of Event Horizon. There's so many similarities between the two movies. Obviously, one's a
I
lot more slick, but there's a lot of
Yep.
plot points and a lot of very similar things that happen in both.
I can't disagree with that. We'll get into Dark Side of the Moon a bit later, but I cannot disagree with. Well, I'll let you know what I think about Dark Side of the Moon when we get to it.
I hope you've opened your heart for joy
I have some impressions. That's all I'll say, sir. We'll get to it when we get to it.
Okay, so why did you pick Event Horizon, Jim?
So, okay, I'm going to be perfectly honest here. Event Horizon came out 3 years after I graduated high school. I got to see it in theaters. I got the full theater experience, and at that point, this movie was state of the art. The CGI was state of the art. The special effects were state of the art. You know, and
Was it
it,
was it though, Jim?
it was
So when did Jurassic Park come out?
94,
And when was this movie?
97.
So I wouldn't say state of the art.
I disagree.
Well, we can get to that as we go through it. There is some. There is definitely some aspects of the visuals I like, but
Well,
some
yeah. I mean,
have aged terribly.
well, that is true. That is true. Some of the CGI has aged incredibly bad. However, I I have a nostalgic connection to this film, so it's not going to detract for me.
Okay. That's okay. That's it. I mean, you know, I love this movie too, and I saw it around your age whenever you saw it too. So I've got
Right.
a lot of good memories, but I also do. Even though I think it is like a mini classic, there is still aspects that even whenever I first watched it, uh,
Hmm.
and you know, on subsequent rewatches, which I've seen a million times. They're still like, oh god, they're kind of grates in my nerves a bit, but we'll get to that.
I'm sure we will. So
Okay,
let's step
so
right in. We'll step right in.
how
Right.
does it open?
We open on just floating debris.
So wait,
There's
this is
what?
what I wanted to see if you noticed, or you know, I just love whenever movies, and I think Deadpool and a few other movies have done it, where they have like the Paramount logo,
Right.
as usual, and then they transition into the movie. right? So they
Right.
have the mountain, and usually, that just goes into a black screen and it goes into the movie. But this transitions as kind of a wide shot pulling out
Right.
into space.
Okay, I didn't get that in depth with the beginning. Pardon me. So the first visual we get, other than the Earth and the spaceship, which I believe is called the Lewis and Clark, is the spaceship we're going to first be introduced to. No, it is not. It is the Event Horizon because of the imagery. So you have the floating debris, and then you get this weird flash of a man screaming. And
Yeah. So I'm sorry. I just go by my notes too. So we get also an opening crawl, right?
right,
Which is similar to Dark Side of the Moon, which
right,
tells you the year and what's happened to that.
that's true. That's true. But can I just say the man that's screaming needs Vaseline everywhere. He looks like he's suffering from the worst case of chapped everything I've ever seen.
You would know more about that than I
I mean, it'll be clearer later
would.
when we see this visual again. But at this point, it looks like just everything is chapped. He's got cracks all over his body.
He looks frostbitten.
There you go. we then we then get introduced to Sam Neill, who is Dr. Weir, and he is woken up from, I don't know what you call it, stasis.
Well, yeah. So that initial first scene is him dreaming.
Right. He has a nightmare. He's having that nightmare.
And where is Sam Neill from, Jim? Do you know this?
I do not.
So he's one of ours. He's from Northern Ireland.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
he was born there. He lived there for a few years, and then obviously he moved off to New Zealand, which is why he's got a New Zealand accent. But no, he's born in Northern Ireland. So yeah.
Oh, well, did you go to school with him?
I'm not that old.
So at this point, we get a shot moving around the cabin of all of the characters as they're waking up from the stasis. We have the navigator, who's Smith or Smitty, played. And Mark, please, because this was driving me nuts and I didn't have time to look it up. What is that actor's name? He's from Dog Soldiers.
Oh, that is Sean Pertwee.
Thank you very much.
Like the other Sean Bean, normally dies in movies he's in.
Yeah, he dies in pretty much everything he's ever been in. So then we get introduced to Peters. That's played by the incomparable Kathleen Quinlan.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have Captain Miller, who is played by Lawrence Fishburne. I did not get the name of Mr. Justin. Do you know that actor?
Oh, that's Jack Noseworthy.
Jackson Noseworthy. So
I believe.
And Coop. And I didn't get Stark or Cooper either. So those are the rest of the crew. Oh, and then we get Jason Isaac, who plays the character of DJ, right. And he's essentially the medic.
And just to pull you back a little bit, so whenever Weir wakes up from his nightmare, there is a scene where he is looking at pictures of his wife, and he's also going to shave using a straight razor, and he's looking over at the bath. And there's just this slow pause on the razor on his neck, like he's contemplating something.
Yep, there is that.
Yep.
There is that.
Can we talk a little bit about Miller's chair?
Sure. What do you want to talk about Miller's? Do you want to describe it so that they can follow along?
Well, it seems like the worst waste of money on a spacecraft ever, where it's like on not a pulley, but it's on like a ceiling track, and it moves around. It's just like
that is true.
It's like, get out of your seat, dude. Something so lazy.
Can we also talk about, and I don't know if you noticed this or not, but I feel like the character of Miller, the captain, right? Miller, right? I'm not getting that wrong. Okay. Yep. It almost seems like he is a baseline for Lawrence Fishburne, who will eventually go on to play Morpheus, because they seem very similar to me, like in the way that they emote and how they conduct themselves.
Right, he's very kind of laconic. There's our word for today, laconic.
There you go.
Where he's very no nonsense, and he's just like, I'm the captain. I'm keeping everyone together, and you're going to do what I say. And
right.
Yeah. So yeah.
But he's not unreasonable. in that respect either.
No, he's not hard ass, but he's in control, and he's
Exactly.
in control, and they're the one. They're He's the one that they go to,
Right.
and
So
he really is very protective of them, as you see during it, and you'll find out why later.
right. So as we're going through while Dr. Weir is shaving, we also get a visual of Peters watching videos of her child. We find out in this scene that they have just reached the outskirts of Neptune's orbit because they have been sent to Neptune on a mission. Weir finally explains to them why they're there, why they've been pulled off leave, and he lets them know that it's to recover the Event Horizon. Mark, what is the Event Horizon?
Do you mean in astrophysical terms?
No, I mean in this movie. What is the Event Horizon?
Is a ship which Sam Neill designed, which went missing 7 years prior, and now has just popped up.
Right.
Neptune, where there's a big storm going on somehow.
Well, and its orbit is degrading, so eventually it will crash into the surface.
Right.
So what he also explains to them is how the ship disappeared. They essentially built a gravity drive that opens two different points in space-time and shoots you through the shortest point to get there.
And what's the shortest distance between two different points, Jim?
Well, we know it's not a straight line because Sam Neill explained that. You fold space in and on itself so that you exist in two spots at once.
Right. Zero.
That's
the closest. And they also use exactly...
Or the singularity.
Well, not...
Or a singularity, not the singularity.
Well, a singularity is at the bottom of a black hole. And no, you would not want to be at the singularity. But have you ever seen Interstellar?
Maybe a very long time ago.
They used exactly the same device of a piece of paper and a pencil shoved through it to explain it in that movie too.
Okay.
Yeah. There's also a piece. Sorry, just to wind it back a bit. Before that, whenever they're coming out of stasis, Sam Neill or Weir has another kind of waking dream where he sees his wife, but his wife has no eyes.
Right. And that's a recurring theme in most of his night terrors or visions. She has no eyes.
Right.
So he explains to them that they activated the gravity drive. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was Proxima Centauri that they were supposed to jump to. But it just disappeared.
Right. Let's also say, and this will also carry on one of the similarities with Dark Side of the Moon, is that even though it's future, lots of people like to smoke, and offer smokes and smoke a lot. Plus, there's also rampant sexism still going on with Cooper macking on Stark.
I'm not gonna lie, that is one of the lines in this movie that I loved, and I never forget it. Would you like to reenact that scene, Mark?
No, I would not. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, but Luke Cooper is the most annoying. He's written like a cartoon character.
I actually that's one of the things I like about him. He brings some levity to a very intense situation.
We will get to the quote unquote levity later when it's the dumbest shit ever. That's it's never sat right with me the way they wrote that character. He's like this stereotypical 90s funny black guy.
Yeah, that's exactly what he is.
And it's a real waste, I think, because that act, I don't know if I've seen him in anything else, but I actually think he's a pretty good actor. But the line
he is a good actor, and I've seen him in a few other things, though his name escapes me.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll move on from the smoking and the sexism.
Right. So the ship disappeared, and they have now Weir plays an audio of their last transmission.
Right.
And they're able to divine one phrase from the recording, and that's "Liberate me."
So there's two scenes. So they do show the initial, or is it part of this scene where they show the captain and everybody leaving, and then they show the kind of the garbled screams.
No, that happens a bit later.
Okay.
The video happens a little bit later. It's just the last audio transmission at this point is the last thing that is what Weir shows them. Once they board the Event Horizon, that's when they see the happy, here we are going on our first mission.
Oh, okay. So now it's just the scream part.
Yes, now it's just the screaming and the one phrase, Liberate me. DJ tells them that he believes that what they're saying is save me.
Right, which I found, this is a point. This is probably more of a nitpick. It's like, so obviously a whole ton of money's gone into this, the Event Horizon, and they'd already had that transmission. And Sam Neill's like, oh well, that just sounds like gobbledygook to me. Like, wouldn't you have a whole bunch of people listening to that? Wouldn't somebody before you go?
I think it's
Latin.
I think even before he got on the ship, he had already determined that they were going no matter what. So I think that,
but it just seems a little strange that he's like, oh, nobody could figure out what that was.
Well, of course it's to a normal person, yes, it would be strange. He is clearly obsessed because the ship is his life.
No, what I'm saying is they would have had hordes of experts, not just him.
Oh, I agree.
Listening to that, and somebody would have figured that out. It's not that difficult.
But do you know why they didn't, Mark?
Why?
It wasn't in the script.
Yeah, like I say, it's a little nitpick, but
yeah.
Okay. Yep, space thunderstorm outside.
So they fly through the thunderstorm and they almost crash into the Event Horizon because they can't see through the cloud.
Yeah, because there would be, I would have think that the computer could work that out, right?
Well, I don't understand why they just kept going, even when they knew it was supposed to be right there. Like, they didn't even apply the brakes.
No.
They're just barreling through the clouds, 100% full throttle. Let's do this. We're going to do this. And then once they see the ship, all of a sudden they put on, full reverse thrusters.
Right, and some of those scenes CGI is a little off a little bit.
Yeah, it is, but I think that's.
But that looks like Oscar-winning stuff compared to some of the other stuff.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. So Stark at this point scans for life forms or life signs. I don't know what terminology they use.
Bioscan.
A bioscan. So she reports to the captain that there are traces of life all over the ship, but she can't pinpoint any of them.
Right.
At this point, Captain Miller just hands out the orders, and he instructs Sam Neill to stay in the command center on the Lewis and Clark because he needs to direct them until they secure the ship.
Right. So it's him, Justin, and Peters, I believe. They're
right.
On board. Now
so they suit up.
Now here we get to it. Here is where it's aged badly. Anytime there's the floating objects, especially liquid, it looks terrible.
Right. Okay.
That's the biggest complaint I have with CGI in this movie. By the way, I love the sets too. The sets are beautiful.
They really are, and that was one of the things I think Sarah mentioned was the visuals in this movie were really stunning because it had grit to it, but it was very, very beautiful. Like, there was so much attention to detail paid just to the room where the gravity drive is that I could look at that set all day and not find the same thing to look at twice.
I love that set, but I mean, really, who designed that gravity drive? Burton or somebody? I don't know. I mean, spikes everywhere, spikes in the door.
I do want to know who designed the meat grinder you have to walk through first.
Right. The carnival.
Yeah, that was a little disorienting. Like, I could not have done it.
I love the look of it, but I don't think it's very practical. I don't think that would practically be
right. Visually, it was beautiful. Practical, not so much. But then again, it's almost 2023, and we're still not out in space. So,
speak for yourself, Jim.
What's that?
Speak for yourself.
Or are you out in space?
Where do you think I'm recording
High as
from?
a kite.
I'm recording just outside of Neptune.
You're so funny. Hang on 1 second.
Okay, now we get some foreshadowing as they're
Yeah,
walking down the ship and looking at what's in the ship that they're foreshadowing for the end.
I don't know where you're going with this at the moment.
The
Oh, you mean no,
explosives,
the walkway.
right? The explosives there. So
Yes.
yeah, take note, audience. This will be important later. I also have a question for you, and I've thrown this question out randomly online.
Okay.
And it's not specific, and I'm glad they didn't have it in this movie per se. But in a lot of like sci-fi movies or even action movies, lots of things seem to have self-destruct buttons on it. But I maintain that's not a real thing. I don't think anything in the real world has a self-destruct button on it. Can you think of anything?
My car used to have a kill switch. Does that count?
No, not unless it blew up.
No, it didn't. It didn't blow up. It definitely didn't do that. It was a 1996 Chevy, and it had a little switch under the dash.
That might just blow up by itself.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think
no,
that's,
I
think
cannot.
that's the conceit of movies, and that's not being something that's like in real life.
I don't know what the point of that would be.
Well, I mean, the point is, and you could say, well, it's happened where in the Navy you might scupper a ship, or you might blow up some important technology you can't bring with you, but you do that with explosives. There's not a button or a key that somebody turns. As far as I know, maybe there is, but I think the risk would really outweigh the benefit because it just takes somebody going on board and just figuring out how to press that button.
Yeah, I honestly don't. I've never seen a self-destruct button in real life, so I couldn't speak to that.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you think of anything, please let us
know. Yes. So Justin heads to engineering.
Yep.
Then we get the cool shot of the walkway, and then I believe
we get the jump scare with Miller and the floating glove.
Right, the floating glove, which I think they're intimating that there's still a hand in it.
Oh yeah, it's like somebody's reaching at him.
Yeah, like it was literally broken off with the hand in it because we know that it's cold on the ship. Mm-hmm. The heat is not turned on, so whatever's there is frozen.
Right. Unless it's got gloves on, then it's fine.
Right. Justin goes into the gravity drive. He sees fluid everywhere, like floating fluid everywhere.
Yes, terrible CGI floating fluid.
That's right. And the gravity drive starts to light up.
Right.
The gravity drive opens, and Justin is pulled in.
Just before this, because we get a little scene of Peters, who's went to the bridge.
Oh, yes. I couldn't remember if it was Peters or Stark that went to the bridge.
Yeah, no, it was Peters. And a really good shot of, again, the space lightning. And behind her, you see all the blood and guts all over kind of the wall.
Yes.
Behind her.
Yep.
But she's looking for the ship's log. And that ship's log is, stored on a DVD or a CD probably at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, I mean, so that's not necessarily out of the realm of possibility for the time, because they did do some physical media backups to different optical drives. So, I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility. But do you know how many? Do you know how many CDs it would take to back up 1 hour's worth of data from that size of a ship? It would be insane.
Yeah, but they don't even do it now, right? They wouldn't do it in 2047.
No, I'm sure they wouldn't.
But it's just one of those things that it's a very 90s thing, right?
It is. It is a very 90s thing. I agree.
And then there's a dead man, right? Behind her at this point?
Yes, there is. Mm-hmm. Yep, you're right.
Another jump scare.
Yes. There aren't that many jump scares, though, really, in here, because they've really set up the terror and the foreboding.
Right.
So anyway, Justin has been pulled into the drive. Cooper goes to retrieve him, but then there is a pulse of energy that comes out and essentially causes damage to the Lewis and Clark, which then forces everybody to have to move over to the Event Horizon. I will say with this movie, it is not slow. It drags a little in the very beginning, but I mean it's only an hour and 31 minutes or 35 minutes or something like that. It moves quick.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does kind of, especially the final third. A lot of
Yeah.
things happen very quickly.
Yes. Yes, they do. So immediately once they say that they have to move to the Event Horizon, Miller's suspicious. He is not happy with that predicament.
Well, it's Smith as much. He's the one that really doesn't want to go on there.
Well, that's true. That is true. But even in Miller's face, you can see it.
Right.
You can
But he
see
tells
this.
everyone to get on board, including Smith.
Yeah. So they get Justin out of the core, and he is essentially catatonic. They know he's breathing, but he is unresponsive to any outside stimuli. And Cooper tries to explain to the crew, including Weir and everybody else, what happened. But Weir gaslights him. He says, "You have to be lying. That can't happen. The gravity drive was not engaged."
See, I disagree. I don't think he's gaslighting him.
Oh, see, at this, even when I initially saw this, I was immediately suspicious of Weir. Immediately.
Yeah, because he's a guy that designed it, and he kind of got the crazy doctor thing. But I at this point, I don't think he's being infected, if you want to put it like that, by the ship. I think at this point he's just looking at it and saying, "Well, there's nobody here, so it couldn't have been turned on. Maybe you just saw something."
Okay, I mean that's fair.
Now,
although he has had some flashes of the core at this point.
But later is when he really turns, and then
right.
I think at this point he's still just like, well, I designed it. It couldn't have opened unless somebody was there to open it, and nobody did.
Right.
So what are you talking about?
So while Peters is in attending to Justin.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's also a ticking bomb, so to speak, the Hitchcock thing, right? So they have 20 hours left, right? So they have to get the ship, the Lewis and Clark, fixed up.
Right, they do because they are currently using the CO2 scrubbers from the Lewis and Clark to clean the air on the Event Horizon.
Right. So Cooper and Weir argue about that. Then Weir goes on, and I just love Sam Neill's. I love Sam Neill.
Well, of course, he's fantastic. I mean, I'm
whenever he's explaining. Well, yeah, we created a black hole, and I think it's Peter's like that's the most destructive thing in the universe, and he's like, yes, because we used it, to do this, and he's very proud of done as you would be, right? It might scare other people, but if you're the one who designed it and it works, wow.
So I want to talk a little bit about the set right now because you get a few really nice shots. You get a view of the chair, the captain's chair on the bridge of the Event Horizon, and it is very reminiscent of a medieval throne. Then you also get.
There's a lot of strange architectural designs for these modern day spaceships that obviously are evoking kind of Baroque cathedrals and
which is going to be
was a design choice obviously by the director,
right, and it's going to be further solidified when you think about the window that you're looking at when you sit in that chair is essentially a cross. So there's a lot of religious iconography and a lot of medieval representation in whoever designed this ship for whatever reason. So anyway, Peters is attending to Justin. And she goes over to another table because she hears a noise, and she sees her son.
Right. It's like a tent. It's not a tent. It's
right. Almost like a tent or something to that effect. And she sees her son. She pulls the covers back, and he's got something wrong with his legs. She said they were crawling. I didn't see that. It looked like there was a fungus or something crawling on his.
It looked like gangrene.
And so. Anyway, so she freaks out, but DJ comes in and breaks her out of her hallucination. Right. And so they all head back to the bridge, and this is where they watch the last video log entry.
Right.
So it starts off with, everybody in the crew is happy and celebrating. We're about to engage the gravity drive. We're about to,
depart.
What? Yeah, depart. Whatever, sorry. It's been a long week, Mark. I'm not at my best with my words. And then all of a sudden they get the garbled it turns into a garbled mess. They can't see anything.
Right.
Then we all of a sudden get a power drain,
Mm-hmm.
and Sam Neill immediately says it's the core. So Sam Neill and Miller exit to go down to the core. Meanwhile, we flash onto Justin, and he's in the middle of a seizure.
Yeah.
This is the part I don't understand. Sam Neill, or Weir, decides he's going to climb through this hatch.
Yeah.
Because he's convinced he knows what the problem is. So he climbs through the hatch that's in the gravity drive room,
Right.
or engine room, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And everything is lit up green. Why?
That's the most popular LED lighting in 2047.
Oh, is that what it is? I thought it was. I mean,
I-
it's better than the RGB crap they put on keyboards. But still, why green?
2 out of 10 for this movie for the green.
So,
Like,
so he finds the board that is defective, and you can tell because it's sparking, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a thing. But as he's pulling the board out, all of a sudden the lights start to turn off little by little in his green tunnels, and he hears the voice of his wife, and he calls out to Miller and says, "We have a problem here." And then everything comes on. Magically, he's fixed this circuit board somehow. But while he's heading back out, Miller now sees bubbles in the liquid that's under the gravity drive, and a man is on fire standing in this liquid, whatever it is.
Right.
They leave, and they don't really explain anything. Like there's no conversation at this point.
Yeah, I mean that's the next scene when
they're all together.
Right.
When they're all together, Miller wants to know if anybody's seeing anything, and that's when Peter says, "I saw my son," and he admits to seeing the man on fire.
And
Weird lies and says he's seen nothing.
Yeah, and I think this is the point where he starts to go crazy because he's obviously seen multiple hallucinations. So there's no reason for him to, when everybody else is already admitting it, to continue to say, and he questions them. Oh no, you're just like going space nuts.
Right. So anyway, where were we? Okay, so at this point, Weir is lying, saying that he's not seen anything, but we already know as the audience that he has. And DJ is trying to explain it away. Carbon dioxide's too high, it causes hallucinations, blah, 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 blah. Giving all the standard scientific stuff, right?
Yeah.
At this point, Smitty starts to lose it.
Yeah, he starts like fighting with Weir or trying.
Right. He tells him flat out, this ship is fucked. And DJ at this point reaches his zenith and puts a scalpel to Smitty's throat to get him to calm down.
Yeah, as you do.
Of course. Because, I mean, what calms you down more than putting a knife to your throat?
Right. Calms me down every time.
Right. That scene ends, and we get a shot of Miller and Stark walking away. And they are having a conversation. Miller wants answers. He wants to know what's happening, and Stark tells him point blank, "I don't know what's happening, but I have a theory." So Miller asks her about the theory. And what's her theory?
The ship is reacting to them.
Right. So all of this is some sort of defense system, I guess?
Yeah, I think that's what she thinks. It's like antibodies attacking a virus. That's what her idea is.
Right.
Which is incorrect, but we'll get to that.
So at this point, we get a shot of Justin in med bay, and he's not there anymore. He's not in his bed. Peters begins to hallucinate. She hears noises.
Yeah.
And the lights start doing weird things. And then there's this this was shot so beautifully. When that explosion happened behind her, I thought it was a visually gorgeous shot.
Yeah, I think also they didn't tell her when they were going to do it.
Yeah, you could tell in her face.
Genuinely surprised.
Yeah, she is. She is definitely surprised. But I mean, she's such a phenomenal actress. Anyway, we would probably never be able to tell the difference.
Right. And
so at this point, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, they have a nice scene here, also of Weir in the captain's chair, right? And they're shooting him with Dutch angles, and because it was with Peters, right? Peters ran into the bridge,
right?
And the door shut behind, and it was like banging. The metal was bending in the door.
Right.
We were sitting there, and this is, he's gone blown crazy at this point.
Yeah.
And he's like, we need to open the door.
But at this point, who stops him?
Start.
Right. She has some defensive move that where she bends his wrist back and he screams.
She's done a little bit of martial arts in her
Clearly.
time.
And then right after all of that gets over, they get the alarm and they find out that the forward airlock has been engaged.
Yeah.
And it immediately occurs to Peters that it's Justin. She already knows. She knows immediately because he's the only person that's not on the bridge. So they take off. And I'm not going to lie, Mark, this scene always gets me. Every single time. I feel it in my chest.
So before we get to, which I think is a very good scene, another one of my bugbears about this movie is this baby bear thing. Fucking baby bear. Shut the fuck up, baby bear. Baby bear, baby bear. Be like, I'm a grown ass man. Don't call me baby bear.
I think it speaks to the relationship with him and Peters because she was also called Mama Bear.
I know. It just annoys me. It just.
Why?
irritates-
What do you have against bears, sir?
Well, I mean, I'm not in that community, Jim, but.
I mean, that's not an untrue statement. You would not qualify as a bear.
But no, I don't know. It just always irritated me that just because it did.
Do you hate nicknames, intimacy? What exactly is it that bothers you?
I didn't like the way he bleached his hair really, and then the baby bear thing was second. So
Mark, you're starting to sound like me. I think I'm rubbing off a bit.
I don't know. I don't mind nicknames. It's just very childish. I don't know.
But I think that is what Justin encompasses. I mean, he is essentially the innocent one on the crew. He's young. He's got a great attitude. He's eager for everything, right? So that's essentially what we're doing. Is and this is, I think, why it hits me so hard. Is I feel like the scene is essentially the loss of innocence.
Well, I just like the monologue that he gives, and then he wakes up from it, and then he's like, "Oh shit."
Yeah, exactly. And that's where he says, "Hey, Mama Bear, why open the door? What are you doing? Open the door!" And he immediately is fully lucid in time to know he's going to die.
Yeah, nice one, Chip.
Yep, I agree.
Soon he'll be bleeding bear.
Right, and I don't care about the fake science. Like, there's no way that man would have survived, even if somebody jumped from one side of the ship to the other from the outside and pushed him back into the airlock. He'd still be dead. I know that, and I don't care because this whole scene is so emotional. And everybody feels so invested that you can suspend that reality for a while.
I mean,
in my opinion.
I mean, you kind of have to suspend belief in a lot of sci-fi horror. So
That's true. That's not untrue. I mean, I do understand that. Except well, never mind. That's for another podcast. Anyway, so Miller jumps and saves him. Oh, well, I mean, we should talk about the fact that he does open the outer airlock, so they can't re-engage the inner door.
Yeah.
So Weir has to come in from the outside and bring him back into the ship.
Miller.
And he does it. And they stabilize him.
Yeah.
So that hopefully they can fix him later.
Right. And now the time is shortened because now they only have 4 hours until all the oxygen runs out.
Right. And at this point, you can tell that Weir senses the gate because the gate engages and he flashes on it. They give the impression that he has a vision of it.
And this is a point, again, where Miller, he's really demanding answers from Weir, right? And
right.
Is being, obviously ambiguous or whatever. But then Miller goes and he hears somebody saying, "Help me."
Yes.
So he's starting to have another hallucination. So he decides he's going to just put his head on the ship and kind of okay, it's just hallucination. And what does he see, Jim?
He sees it, all of the crew being tortured. He gets a flash of them all being tortured, tied down, wrapped in barbed wire, everything. But at this point, he also tells the story of the man that was on fire.
Right, the bosun.
He explains that there was a bosun on another crew with him that was essentially on fire, and they had to cut and leave him. They had to leave him behind.
Yep.
And that is one of the reasons that Miller is so adamant about not losing somebody.
Which he fails, but anyway.
Right, and we should also mention at this point he's talking to DJ.
Right.
He's talking to DJ about all of it. He's admitting what he saw, what he heard, what happened with the bosun, and DJ admits that he had listened to the last audio recording again, and he got the translation wrong. What was actually being said was liberate tutte me. What
Mhm.
does that mean, Mark?
In fact, do you want to finish off the entire
Sure. Liberate tutte me ex infernis.
Inferus?
Yeah. No, there's an N in there.
Here's a fun fact. I did Latin in school for 3 years.
So did I.
No.
Yeah. I was even on the competition team.
Latin competition team?
Yes, we had competitions over here. We called it Curtamen. It was essentially Jeopardy for Latin geeks.
Jesus Christ, Jim. Yeah, so what he translates it to is not save me,
Right.
it's save yourself from hell.
Right. So at this point, Clark. Oh, okay. At this
This
point,
is,
DJ's out.
this is where it really speeds up from this point.
Right. So DJ's trying to fix the Lewis and Clark, or not DJ. Cooper is outside repairing the Lewis and Clark. Peters and Stark are on the bridge trying to decode the log, and
Right.
they succeed. And Mark, what do they see?
They see an average Saturday night at Jim's place, I think.
Oh yes, 100%. I do this as much as possible.
So they see debauchery and butchery and people shoving their arms down other people's throats, etc., etc. Do you know there was a lot more footage they shot of this?
I don't. I'm not surprised that it was edited down. To be honest,
No,
because of the graphic nature. To be honest.
right. So they shot it over a weekend without the knowledge of the studio, and they shot
Oh.
a lot more footage.
Mhm.
Obviously, whenever they were doing not test screening, but I think the screening it for the studio, they said, "You're gonna have to cut that way down." And
Right.
unfortunately, and it's one of these kind of holy grails of horror that's just been lost. I guess it got destroyed.
So the Clark is now repaired, or so they think, and they're about to repressurize to test it.
Right. There's a conversation just
Between Weir and Miller. Yeah.
between Weir and Miller where Weir has gone now full crazy guy, and he's
Well,
like,
yeah,
we
he
can't
tells
leave. You know,
we can't leave.
yeah,
Yeah.
she won't let you. And what does Miller say he's going to do?
The only sensible thing, he's going to blow the ship up.
Right. Just remember that for our next movie too. There's lots of these things where it's exactly the same thing that happens.
So I already noted the similarity, just so you know.
Oh, I was going to get one of those little bells, the service bells, and I was going to
Yeah.
every time it was like the same thing, or basically. But
So
um,
at this point, Weir's a menace. He is
yeah, he
balls
backs
to the
out
wall
into
crazy.
the shadows.
Yeah. So the drive engages again.
Mhm.
Peters sees the gate open this time. At
Yeah, so
this, he goes.
Smith and Peters are getting the CO2 scrubbers because they only have like was it very like 20 minutes or something to go.
Yeah, right.
And Peters hears, and again, this is another thing in horror movies. It's a bit of a trope. Like you should know better than this, but she hears a voice, and it's her son, kind of in that same gravity drive room, and she goes running after him and climbs up to find him, and he's standing there. And what happens to Peters?
She falls. She falls to her death.
I will say this: the dummy they use is a bit but I love the landing.
Oh, of course, yeah. When they actually show her legs break, I thought it was amazing.
Like the landing under the grate. Yeah.
Yeah, when I don't know if you noticed when she lands, they show her legs jackknife
Yeah.
and snap, and I thought that was amazing. The part that I didn't get about this is Weir has an emotional reaction.
Yes.
Like he's not insane. You would think he's fighting with these people to stay alive, but we already know he's gone nuts.
Right. It's almost like it's all been kind of hypothetical to him so far,
Yeah,
because it's not being real.
right.
Um, and I think this is the part where it kind of shatters that illusion, where he is, oh my God, Peter's, you're dead. But then all of a sudden, quick change of scene. Now he's back in the space station, reliving what happened to Claire, his wife.
Right, which
Uh,
is this is where we find out she actually committed suicide while he was at work.
Right. And if you think about this, a lot of these people's hallucinations are around their own guilt, right? It's not necessarily their own fear, but Peters felt guilty for leaving her son. Weir felt guilty about his wife. Miller felt guilty about the bosun. So that's a common thread between the main characters. The other characters don't really get much of a backstory like that, but certainly
Right.
some of the main characters.
And at this point, so this is you want to hear how petty I got with this scene with Weir and his wife when she comes out of the bathroom after she's dead and her eyes are gone.
Yeah.
It really annoyed me that she was wearing underwear.
Well, 2 out of 10.
Well, no, I'm not done.
Oh.
When she's standing there and holding his head against her,
yeah,
and you get the shot of her breast, there's a giant purple mark, like she's got a bruise on one of her boobs, and that bothered the hell out of me after I noticed it.
Well, that's because she's dead, Jim. People bruise when they're dead.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they do. Have you never seen Return of the Living Dead?
Honestly, I don't know that I have.
You hold up. Hang on. You have never seen Return of the Living Dead. Is this what you're telling me and the entire world? And whenever this goes into like the Congress library of whatever, where they store important documents, etc. Are you telling everybody you've not seen Return of the Living Dead?
I do believe that is the case. Yes, sir. I do not recall ever having seen that.
Then, okay. I keep that in mind going forward.
Okay.
So yes, so she's there. She's got her eyes gouged out again. And we get the next scene whenever Cooper's outside. He's like finished fixing the Lewis and Clark, but
right.
He's Weir from the behind, right? And,
right.
He's walking out of the Lewis and Clark.
Right.
And Miller is radioing or video conferencing, zooming.
Mark, this is 2022. Nobody uses Zoom anymore. We all use Microsoft Teams.
Oh God.
No.
And he is telling him that Weir's done something here because he's been acting crazy, and he notices that one of the explosive devices is gone. So he's like, Smith, get out of here. But Smith is like, hell no, I'll find it first.
Yep. Smith is so protective of that shit.
Does he find it? I guess we should put at the start. I was thinking about these episodes. Each episode, we're going to spoil everything.
Well, I mean, okay, so this movie is what, almost 30 years old at this point?
We should probably tell people. It's probably common courtesy.
Once we discuss what we're going to see next, we will make that disclaimer.
I just mean at the start of every episode, hey, we're going to spoil each of these movies because we're going to walk our way through them.
Pretty much.
Anyway,
okay, so Smith actually locates the bomb. What happens when he locates the bomb?
Well, he's got a few seconds to think about his life.
Smitty go boom.
Yeah, and that's where Weir hit it, right? It was Smith's, like, I don't know if it was where his compartment is or whatever, but it has.
Yeah, I don't know.
So yeah.
So at this point, the Clark is gone. The Lewis and Clark is gone.
Right, and I love that part now because you know that they're pretty much fucked.
Right.
Apart from the kind of the lifeboat thing that they said at the start, but I just love the way that they just like eliminate that.
Yeah.
And what happens to Cooper though? Wasn't he working on the Lewis and Clark?
He was, and he is now free floating into space on a piece of wreckage.
Yeah, and what's he doing as he's free floating away?
Saying fuck a lot.
Oh man, I can't believe this happened to man, and wisecracking, holy shit, man, and da, 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 da. But he figures out a way to get back to this, the event horizon, which you can't even see at this point. So he undoes the oxygen, and here I come, motherfucker, as he blasts his way back.
Okay, let's hold on to that feeling because I have a similar point to make on the next movie.
Oh! I know what line it is.
I know you do.
And I think there was just one reason for making that quote unquote character, and that was for that line.
No, there's another reason too, but we'll get into that.
Oh, yeah.
Ha
A couple of points.
ha ha. So
Well,
at this point, where am I? So DJ,
this is where DJ gets killed by Weir.
right? Weir attacks DJ and essentially splays him.
I love this.
Up on the bridge, like everything, or not in the bridge. He's in med bay because he's open and all of his innards are on the table.
So one thing that I always notice, and I guess I should probably just look it up. So did you notice on DJ's chest he already had
I did.
a large
notice that.
scar down it? I don't know if that is something that they left out, or it was supposed to be important, or maybe he just has it in real life. I don't know.
Right.
But he gets cut open that way, so I figured there was some sort of relevance to it.
Yep. It does sort of feel like that.
Jim, are you a fan of the history of torture?
No, not so much.
Yeah, don't look that up. It's pretty disturbing.
Yeah, I probably won't.
Don't look up things like escapism.
No.
Or being flayed alive. It's not
That would never cross my mind to Google that.
Not much of a horror fan, are you?
I'm not a snuff film fan. As long as I know it's fake, I'm good.
There's such thing as a snuff movie. But anyway.
So
where are we?
At
okay.
this point,
so,
Miller is now hunting Weir.
And also with this Weir kill, this is kind of where it turns into almost Hellraiser territory.
Yeah, agreed.
Like, even the way he's killed, he's up in hooks and everything else. I meant to ask you, have you seen the movie Sunshine?
That doesn't sound familiar.
You should check that one out too. It's a really good sci-fi movie, and it's got parallels to this at certain points too.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I think this is kind of where it goes Hellraiser-y.
Stark is unconscious. Miller wakes her up, and they're moving. They're still looking for Weir, but at this point, Weir finds them.
But Miller, just prior to that, got like this bolt gun, which went missing as he was reviving Stark with the
right. He gets hit and it's gone. And who has the gun?
Why? It's our friendly Pinhead esque.
Who has now become the chapped man from the very beginning of the movie.
Right. And,
but you point that it's not chapped, it's not chafing, it's actual cuts into his skin.
Right. It's kind of like the Japanese torture execution method, death by 1,000 cuts. Jim,
I thought that was paper cuts.
No. Well, that would be even worse. That would take longer.
Right? It would be horrific. And then you pour lemon juice on it.
But he's missing his eyes.
Yes.
What does he seem to mind that he's missing his eyes?
He does not.
Well, why?
Because he's actually sewn his sockets shut at this point.
Why? Because you can say the line.
What makes you think I'm going to miss?
No. Where we're going, we won't need eyes to see.
I missed that piece of it, Jim.
Again, that's another very Pinheadish line.
Yes, it is.
So Weir's going to open the gravity drive and have a little.
Well, first he explains to them where the ship went.
Right.
And then he engages the drive. But what else does he do?
So
he threatens Miller with the gun.
Right.
And Miller's kind of cocksure that he's got no eyes. He's not going to hit me. And what does Weir say to him?
He won't miss. I don't remember.
What makes you think I'll miss?
Right. I was close.
So
but everybody's most hilarious character is back.
Well, that's true. He does make a return.
I hope you don't edit out some of my sighs because they're for effect.
No, I only edit out my sighs when I know they weren't for effect.
Just annoying.
Because I do tend to sigh a lot, and my boss pointed it out to me. So
that's a good boss there.
Yep.
So Cooper has somehow magically navigated his way back to outside the bridge. Sam Neill decides, well, I'm just going to shoot him with my gun.
Right. And what does he shoot out instead?
The window.
Right.
There's,
And then
there's
what
so
happens?
much plot armor around Cooper. Nothing could ever kill him.
Right. That's true. That is true. But if you do, so let's say this about that. As much as you think he's a stereotype, this is one of the only movies where well, actually, no,
No, only
one
one.
of the only two survivors is an African American.
Right.
That was very not the norm back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
It still doesn't wash away the awful writing for him.
No, it does not. I don't. I'm not discounting them just because they did one thing right.
Right.
So at this point, Weir is sucked out of the breach in the window.
So Miller is the strongest man alive, apparently.
Yes, he is.
Because the suction of space it was so great. It unscrewed or broke bolts out of Weir's chair, but Miller is able to, on a rope, basically just pull himself to safety and then hide. So this is a bit that I found funny. He kind of hid a little bit behind the door, as if you still wouldn't be sucked out. Anyway, so
Right.
Stark's unconscious. The whole Stark thing's a bit weird too. It's almost like they didn't know what to do with that character.
Well,
so
they did. Her only purpose is to live. She doesn't
Right.
really have much to do in the movie.
Yeah, it's kind of strange.
Well, that and to be, the object of Cooper's adoration.
lasciviousness.
Yeah, that too. But this was kind of a cool scene where she is consumed in an avalanche of blood. That was kind of cool.
Well, yeah. So basically, what happens is that Miller pulls or gets Stark out of the room. So they sealed it up, and now they're going to do some little jobs before they, get out of there and blow the front part of it off so that they can just leave. But yeah, so blood starts to fill up, and
it's very reminiscent of The Shining.
But
with the elevator.
One of the tropes that I don't like is something dripping on somebody.
I think we've had this discussion once before, also.
Exactly, and that happens with Cooper, right?
Yes.
So it's like
another reason for you to hate.
So rather than moving out of the way, he just stands there and then looks up as it's still dripping on him.
Right. So now Miller is attacked by the bosun.
Right.
Miller's in the core drive room or in the gravity drive room, and he's attacked by the bosun. What happens to the bosun, Mark?
Well, it's not really the bosun.
Who is it?
It's now full Hellraiser Weir.
Right, and he kicks the shit out of Miller.
Yeah.
Except, what has Miller done prior to this?
Oh, he's armed some of those bombs, and he's got a remote control.
That's right. And Weir is completely oblivious. He just thinks he's going to kill him. Or no, he doesn't want to kill him. He wants to take him with him.
Well, he wants to take all of them.
Right. He's going to take them into this hell dimension.
Because earlier on, or it might be in this scene where Miller is saying, well, this ship killed the whole crew. And Weir's like, well, now it's got another one.
Right. So Miller blows the main corridor. And now the front part, the lifeboat essentially is free. And it goes off into space.
Or just to rewind a little bit. So we have, whenever they're basically fighting, Miller has some more kind of like hallucinations of torture, but that is for his own crew.
Right.
Right. But he decides, you know what? It's Miller time.
Yep.
So he sacrifices himself into a dimension of eternal pain.
Mm. Do they make it out? Because the ship actually explodes, and I didn't know if that was supposed. Well, so I take that back. It doesn't explode. There's a bright flash and it disappears, and I never really understood if it just went into the dimension or if it blew up.
So the gravity drive was just about to open. There was an explosion on the pathway, which separated the two. But the other part was still intact, and the gravity drive opened that dimension, and that's where they got sucked into. So if you talk about bravery and characters, and I know, like, even if he didn't do anything, he'd still be in that situation, but he chose to go to basically hell. And as Weir points out, hell is just a word. The reality is much, much worse.
Right.
And there's not many, like, we think about horror movies and sacrifices people have made. Usually it's, they die or whatever, but he's kind of lining himself up to go to hell. So good on Miller.
Yes, absolutely. So now we have Cooper and Stark. They're both free. They go to put themselves into stasis. And how long is it before they're found, Mark?
It's 72 days, Jim.
72 days, which
Um,
parallels, well, kind of. The number is a bit reminiscent of the length of time that Sigourney Weaver spent in hypersleep. She spent 73 years in hypersleep in Alien, between Alien and Aliens.
hmm, maybe they met up.
Maybe. So they're found by a rescue team, right?
Which is
And
very also similar to the start of Aliens.
except who's having the nightmare this time?
This would be Stark.
Right. So do you think maybe the ship still had some of that life form in it? Dun dun dun.
No, I think it's just her. But I kind of what I
It,
like to think, what I like to think is it's almost like if she's gone insane, which
yep.
would be a great kind of H.P. Lovecraft ending. If that's what actually happened to her, but she's probably just freaking out a little bit. She's probably fine.
So that is the end of our film, our first movie.
So, how many gravity drives out of 10 would you give this?
6. Solid 6.
6?
Well, I would give it more, but because the CGI and some of the stuff didn't age very well, I'm cutting it back a little bit, but it's definitely a solid 6, possibly a 7.
I'm giving this a solid 8 out of 10.
Even with the stuff that you really nitpicked on, huh? It's still that good for you?
Yep, absolutely. I think it's an
Okay.
absolute classic and the best thing Paul Anderson has ever done.
Well, I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, like I overlook, CGI and stuff. It's just like kind of a little bit of eye rolling. But really,
Yep.
what matters to me, it's writing first of all, um, direction, acting, sets, whatever. But I can see past a lot of stuff if the writing is good and it's intriguing and it's I would say fairly original. But we will get to that with Dark Side of the
Yep. Well, we'll get to something with Dark Side of the Moon.
I think we have Sarah had some feedback.
Yep, that's what I was just looking for.
So Sarah Miley,
Miley Cooper, yep.
Event Horizon is one of my top sci-fi favorites. Its cinematography is dark and gritty but stunning. The movie is not carried by just jump scares, but rather psychological fear and dredging up their past, deepest regrets and fears, and showing them and shoving them down each character's throat. Sam Neill, one of my favorite actors, the and she said she cannot wait for the commentary. So
Right.
hopefully, Sarah, we've lived up to your expectations. But
I think we hit on everything that she pointed out because we agree that thematically and the way that this movie is shot and the way everything is done, it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful cinematic journey, even with the terrible CGI.
yeah, and like I said, I think most of the CGI it's just a product of that time, and
Yeah, agreed. I 100% agree. Not everything is going to age well.
yeah, and it's fine. It's a sci-fi movie. There's no other way that they could have done it.
Right.
Practically, I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, it's like I said, it doesn't really take in it. But I've got other things such as kind of leaps in the plot a little bit, and some characterizations are just kind of bring it down a couple of points for me. But still,
Yeah,
I think
but not
awesome.
enough to make that much of a difference in your rating, though. I mean, I think I'm much harder on films than you are in that respect.
I think so.
But even I agree. This was such a well done movie that even with its flaws, it's hard to not appreciate it.
But what I will say this about again, I think we talked about this before, Jim. Your rating system. So you gave it a 6 out of 10, which to
Yeah.
me would be just above average. So to me, it's like how many movies are you know on better than that for you? Is it a lot? Is it two? Is it
No,
four? Is
it's
it
not.
10?
So here's and I had this conversation at work too. So I am of the mindset that if you do your job, whether, and I just mean in general, like,
Right.
a car performs well or, people I'm working with perform well, that should be average. I should not be rating something as phenomenal unless it goes above and beyond. And to me, this movie is effective. It's well done. It should be the average.
So phenomenal should be average.
No.
So what? Okay. So say I'm taking a test and there's
Yes.
100 questions and I get 50 of them right. What's my score out of 100?
You're talking to no. The different situation. That is not opinion based. That is fact based, and that gives you a solid scoring system. Whereas what we're talking about is all opinion based. So a lot of it is based on my personal beliefs and not necessarily a hardcore scoring.
I almost feel like you don't like movies.
No, just a lot harder on them than you are, I think.
Well, I mean, again, I whenever I go into a movie, and I always go into a movie wanting to like it, right? Because why
Right.
else would I spend my
And
time watching
and I'm the exact
it?
opposite. I go into a movie expecting to hate it.
That, so that's a very Jim. Is there any counselors near you that maybe you could look up?
No.
It's a very depressing way to look at life.
So this is the way that I was always taught when it comes to expectations. You expect the worst, but hope for the best.
So you could say that as like a movie is just supposed to be fun or entertaining
Right.
or
Agreed.
something. Like I would never. It's like listening to a song or an album or
Hmm.
looking at a painting or whatever. Any
Right.
sort of art. I never go in there thinking, oh, it's going to be shit. But if it's pretty good, I'll give it average. But that's how I'll. But that's just me. I mean, I like movies and I watch a lot of them. So I
I'm
don't know.
not sure you do, given the picks that you've had for this show.
You've never heard of it. Most of these ones that I've picked up seen a lot more movies than you, young man.
That is true, but I'm not. I find it hard to understand to I don't know, just the things you like astound me at times.
So hang on. I think we have to talk a little bit about the mission statement of this podcast.
Okay.
So the mission statement of this podcast is not that you pick an absolute classic because some of the movies you've picked you don't really like or give a 6 out of 10. But what my point of view is to open up people's experiences. Not like I'm the biggest geek in the world. There's lots of
Well,
people
okay,
who want
so
more movies. So I want to pick a movie which fits with the other movie. And I'm not going to
right.
pick something that I hate, but that doesn't mean that I love and think everything that I'm picking is a 10 out of 10. Not at all.
No, but you have to have at least some appreciation of it in order for it to
Well, yeah,
be your choice.
but
And
some appreciation doesn't mean that I would recommend it to everybody, but I
well,
would
that
recommend it to some people that are interested in the A movie. I might want to have, something along the same lines that maybe they haven't heard of, and maybe they'll like it more than me. Maybe they'll like it less than me. But it's just
and
something
that's and
to go along with it.
but that's also something that you may not understand. Even if I don't enjoy the movie, for the plot or whatever, I still enjoy the experience of not enjoying the movie.
So, Jim,
So
uh,
yeah, let's talk about your masterpiece, Mark.
yes, the 1990 classic Dark Side of the Moon.
Classic.
Even more classic than the awful Pink Floyd album.
Well, that's probably true. I probably like them about the same.
So, Jim, there is a lot of similarities between this and Event Horizon. And every time there's a similarity, you will hear this.
Oh God, we have sound effects now.
Now we have a bell now.
Interesting.
So we have an opening title crawl set in what year?
2022.
Right. So this is really a documentary.
Right, but I do also want to point out the similarity in the theme music. It is very reminiscent of A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Well, I guess that shouldn't have been a ding for that.
No, that shouldn't have been not Event Horizon.
We'll ding it for Nightmare on Elm Street.
There you go.
Jim's like, oh shit, he's got a bell.
Do you have a bell, and are you drinking also?
Yes and yes.
Okay, then it's just going to get worse from here on out, people. Just be warned.
Are you drinking, Jim?
I am.
That's worse. So we have the opening crawl, and we have kind of there's star ships that go out and fix other satellites, nuclear satellites, blah 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 blah.
They
But
call it refab.
refabbing.
They
And
refab.
these nuclear satellites will, a little bit of
Right.
a little bit of foreshadowing there.
Yes, foreshadowing.
So one of the satellites has floated behind the dark side of the moon. So the intrepid crew of Space Corps One.
You use that word a lot.
What?
Intrepid.
Intrepid space.
You use intrepid a lot.
Well, yeah, that's because. Well, I mean, that's a great word. People should use it more often.
I feel like it would become misused, like supposedly.
Supposedly.
Did it bother you that I said it? Can I ask you something?
Can you axe me with an axe?
Yes. Yes, I'd like to ask you something.
Well, it's like overwhelmed. That's really isn't a word. It should just be whelmed and underwhelmed. Because there's underwhelmed, and then the opposite of that is whelmed, which is overwhelmed. Well, welcome back to our linguistic podcast.
Yeah. Yes. Welcome back to Linguistics 101 with your professor, Mark.
So on the Intrepid Space Corps 1, they're going to go and try and get this nuclear satellite. So we have Flynn and Giles, who are like the captain and the co-captain, I guess. In charge, number 2. And can we just talk about, this is not a high budget movie.
Very reminiscent of the early 60s show Dark Shadows, where the sets wobble and it's hysterical.
Right. So the internal sets, they're kind of 1960s B-movie sets.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Just random lights blinking everywhere.
And I think really that's where the budget. I think everything else, without those interior shots, you wouldn't peg it as such a low budget movie. So who do we have? Okay, so the comms are down, right? So there's something happening with Space Corps 1.
And this is where what's his face mansplains to Cookie about their predicament.
There's actually a little bit before. This is whenever they
Pardon me.
Paxton, who's Joe Turkel, who was also in The Shining.
Yes.
And he was in Blade Runner too.
I've never seen Blade Runner.
It's a classic movie, but I find it kind of boring. So anyway, so they're calling him so that he can interact with who, Jim?
Leslie.
And can you explain to our listeners who/what Leslie is?
Leslie is, for lack of a better term, she is the computer of the ship in a pleather jumpsuit.
Right. She's the hot computer, the hot AI.
Right. Everybody needs a hot AI, right?
I mean, I'm not going to say we're predicting the future, but this is set in 2022, so I'm pretty sure there's going to be that very soon. Well,
they do have one. Isn't her name Sophie or something like that? They had one, and she was talking about her own existence. She was pondering why she existed.
Well, that's just creepy, isn't it?
But she's only human looking from the chest up.
So the chest down, she's just a robot?
Metal. That's it. Just metal.
Have you seen the movie Ex Machina?
Mm-mm.
You should watch it. That's all I'll say.
Noted.
Especially since you're in IT, you might find it interesting.
So here, let me tell you about that. Right, I hate movies that have tech in it because most of it is garbage tech, and it drives me insane when I see them do 1300 keystrokes where they're just pounding on keys on a computer and go, "I'm in."
Oh yeah.
There's only been one show that was anywhere close to accurate, and that was Mr. Robot, because you could actually read the lines of code on some of the shots, and they were valid. They were valid commands.
That sounds exhilarating.
Shut up, you, bro, not me, sir.
But anyway, Ex Machina, it's a big recommend. Okay, so we have Paxton talking to Leslie, and Leslie is like, I don't know what the fuck you're all talking about. Everything's working fine,
Right.
but it isn't.
Is it or isn't it?
It isn't
Are we
because,
sure?
yeah, their columns are down, things aren't working.
Well, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true.
So here we get to meet some basically the rest of the crew.
Right.
We have Jennings,
Mm-hmm.
and we have Doc.
Doc. Yes, Doc.
Uh,
Who incidentally is allergic to cream. It will give him a heart attack.
oh yeah, but that's
We'll learn that later.
that's fairly common.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, everybody has a heart attack if they're allergic to something.
Who else do we have? We have Alex, and
Mm-hmm.
this is a scene where just like Event Horizon, we
Hmm.
we have just some casual sexism between the female and the male crew. Basically, most of them. Well, two of them.
Right.
So they find out that the ship is also drifting to Centris B40, the dark
Which
side
is
of the moon.
dun dun dun.
So they start fixing. They're trying to fix whatever is wrong with the cheap sets that aren't working. So we have Jennings being, as I say, kind of a creep to Alex,
Right.
and Paxton also has a creepy holding his hand on her hand for a little too long and looking at her. It's gross, but everything seems to be functional, but the temperature keeps dropping. And we also have the scene where, as you said, the doc is having a cup of coffee, but I think it's Alex who makes it for him and
Yes.
put milk in it, which he then says, "I can't drink milk; it'll give me a heart attack."
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
That is a little bit of foreshadowing, though.
just a little
Just a
bit.
little bit.
So we have a scene where Alex is looking at the Space Core One window, and she sees the space shuttle coming at them.
Which shuttle is it?
A space shuttle coming at them.
Oh no, no, they know what shuttle it is. They figure out
Yes,
what shuttle it is.
Discovery. But we find out that these these types of space shuttles have not been in service for many, many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, "What the hell's going on? Hey, we've got a space shuttle coming towards them." Paxton says, "It looks like it's been through hell."
Ah, ah, ah.
Um, so they're going to dock with it, and again, this is very similar with Event
Well,
Horizon.
I do want to point this out before they do that. Well, actually, I may be jumping a little bit ahead where they start suiting up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They talk about how out of date the technology is going to be on the ship, yet they use the exact same spacesuits.
Because the spacesuits have not needed to be changed.
Oh no, not in the 40 or 50 years since the space shuttle disappeared.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. As long as we're aware, you know.
That was a pinnacle of spacesuit design. They couldn't improve upon it.
Well, I disagree because if you remember the soon to be classic Prometheus, they were about as tight as Leslie the robot's suit.
I know, right? So yeah, so like I say, it's very Event Horizon. Obviously, in Event Horizon, they're going specifically to find the Event Horizon ship, but this is one that they've just come across. But similar to Event Horizon, both ships are basically vessels of evil.
Ding ding ding.
So so this is where they suit up and they're going to go into the shuttle, but they better start bring some guns with them just in case.
Of course, because you have to have guns on a spaceship because nothing says safety like piercing the hull.
I mean, a space shuttle, there might be aliens aboard. I don't know. Anyway,
maybe you never know.
So they're bringing their guns over with them. So whenever they get on to the Discovery,
No. But wait. Let's not jump. There's one line that gets said here that just ratchets up the tension, and you skipped it. You glossed right over it.
Well, that's why you're here, Jim.
When Leslie says, "Please hurry, we're almost out of air."
Right. So again,
And this is another thing I want to point out is every time they have to infer something about the ship, either ship, they are quote unquote reading binary. It's just a bunch of ones and zeros flashing in different order. That's all it is.
yeah,
Because I mean, that's just
I was able to read that.
Oh yeah, you could you tell me some of the commands?
Triangle. Yeah. Did you notice the triangle in there, Jim?
I did.
Yeah, it's very subtle.
Which again is a little bit of foreshadowing, a little bit of forced foreshadowing.
So they get onto the Discovery and they find it's flooded. There's a bunch of water there, and not just any sort of water. Jim, what sort of water is it?
It's salt water.
Salt water. I wonder where that could have come from.
Well, there's ice on the moon, isn't there?
Ice on the moon?
Yeah, isn't there ice on the moon?
I don't think so.
Are you sure?
Are you thinking about Mars?
No, everything on Mars is hot, except for the poles.
They have ice on Mars.
Yeah, they do. I know. They have water on Mars. Frozen water on Mars.
Yeah, that's ice, Jim.
Is it? Is it though? Because hydrogen can freeze too, and become dry ice. Just so you're aware.
Okay. So they have the temperature is raised. There's oxygen, but there's also sulfur in the air.
You know what we didn't point out? Also, sorry, I don't mean to skip back, but this part really annoyed the shit out of me. When they went to dock with Discovery, mind you, it's outdated old tech, but they were able to dock with it without a problem.
Mm-hmm.
How intricate was this scene where they had to deploy the arm to dock?
The umbilical?
Yes. The umbilicus.
It was, like I say, I mean, this documentary is being riveting so far.
Well, yeah, they pushed a single button and it went right to where it was supposed to be.
Yeah, that's because it's 2022. It's the future. Things know what to do, Jim.
Oh, no? It's all automated?
Push to the button, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, just so we're aware.
Glad to clear that up for you.
Sure.
Okay, so there's sulfur also in the air. Sulfur, why do you think that they brought up sulfur, Jim?
Oh, that'll when we find out what
happened with the Discovery?
Yeah, that'll be brought up. So I will say that there was one line that was used as they were exploring the ship that I thought was hysterical. And I forget who said it, but they said, "This is weirder than the Flying Dutchman."
Yeah.
I loved that line. I thought that was great.
Well, I mean, obviously, we know why, right?
We do.
In the Flying Dutchman, very famous boat that everyone went missing, or it went missing.
It's a ghost ship, essentially.
Right.
Davy Jones is supposed to sail it, and when you see the Flying Dutchman, he's coming to take your soul.
Dun, dun, dun. Also, they find a dead fish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it looks like it's been eaten.
Right.
So Flynn gets on, the power's off, so he goes and turns the power on. Thankfully, this.
And what happens on every derelict spaceship when you turn the power on? Gravity is restored, and everything falls to the ground.
Just like an Event Horizon.
Just like an Event Horizon and every other sci-fi movie you'll ever see in your life.
I know, right? So basically, they're going to take the air from the Discovery and put it onto the Space Core 1. Although Paxton is concerned that they're bringing the air over.
So do you think it's spelled C-O-R-E or C-O-R-P?
C-O-R-P. What? For what?
For Space Core.
Oh.
Is it C-O-R-E or C-O-R-P?
No, I'm going to say it's... did I write it down?
I'm just curious.
C-O-R-E.
Okay, as long as you're certain. I was just curious.
It's not like Space Corps, like the Army Corps.
Do not joke. We do have Space Force now, and it is 2022. I was a little disappointed.
Well, I mean, again, this documentary, is fantastic.
It clearly was not that accurate.
So Paxton, yeah, he's concerned about taking the air from the Discovery in case there's something weird with it, but I think it's not Giles. It's somebody. I think it's the captain's like, well, you can either have that or no air.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
I think we'll risk it. So they find out that the fuel tanks are empty, and they're wondering how it's flying and who's flying it.
Right.
Because they say NASA has not been flying these things for 30 years.
They give you a date. Do you remember the date? The last time Discovery was in service?
No.
Discovery was lost in 1992.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Since it's set in 2022 and they said it was 30
Right.
years before. So we have more of exploration through the Discovery with Flynn and Giles.
Right.
And they find moon samples specifically, and I don't know how they'd know this, from the dark side of the moon.
Right. Centris B40.
Right. So Alex is again looking at the molecular makeup of everything, and she figures out that there's something changing the molecular. I can't talk. Molecular structure, and then we see blood dripping on the ground, and then
your favorite shot ever,
and then a body falls.
That's right. Ding.
Just like Event Horizon. So now we have Doc examining the dead body.
Can we just point out how calm everybody was when that happened?
Well, I mean,
they were not shocked at all that this flayed body just dropped.
I mean, has that not happened to you?
Never in my life.
Oh, very sheltered life there, Jim.
Of course, I've never been on a spaceship either, so maybe that's the disparity.
There you go. But once you get into Space Force, you won't be shocked either.
Okay, fair enough.
So we have the Doc examining him, and by the way, this guy has got a great 80s mustache. The dead body. He kind of looks like a wrestler almost.
Porn stage.
Yeah. And he has a very particular wound on his body. What is the wound that he has, Jim?
I don't know how to explain it, but it's essentially it's a triangle on his stomach.
Right. So
right? Is it a triangle or a diamond? It's a triangle, right?
It's a triangle. You'll notice why the triangle is such a big thing in this.
Yes, because that'll be forced upon us soon.
So yeah, with all his kind of guts hanging out. Yeah.
What is this character's name?
I think I wrote it down later.
It's Gautier.
Gautier. That's somebody that I used to know.
Please don't ever do that again. Because now I have that song in my head.
You're welcome. So we have Jennings and Flynn. They're going to go seal the airlock because they're worried that there might be other people on board or somebody did that to that guy.
Right.
And we have Giles talking directly with Leslie. Now,
right.
He had to go through Paxton because why?
Because Paxton had locked everybody up but himself.
Why? Huh.
Because Paxton is a fucking creep.
Mm-hmm. See, I think he's been doing stuff with Leslie and he doesn't want anybody else to know about it.
That would not surprise me in the least.
So Leslie basically gives a little bit of backstory about the Discovery, saying
being lost in 1992. Where did they recover the crew?
It splashed down in the Bermuda Triangle.
Dun dun dun.
Have you ever been to the Bermuda Triangle?
Believe it or not, actually, Melbourne, Florida is one of the corners of the Bermuda Triangle. Right. So yes, I have been.
And you're still here to tell us about it?
I am.
Wow. Do you believe in the Bermuda Triangle?
I believe that there's a scientific explanation for it. I don't believe that it is anything other than supernatural. No. I did as a kid. Like I was all in for all the supernatural stuff when I was a kid, but as I get older, I believe wholeheartedly there's an explanation for everything.
However, I wonder if this documentary might change your mind.
This garbage did not change my mind, sir. I'm sorry.
So they crashed down the Bermuda Triangle. Two survived, one didn't. That is
Right.
our friend with the mustache,
Hmm.
the person that I used to know. His name. The doc then says, "Hey, apart from the guy's guts hanging out, it's actually his body is absolutely fine. Right?
Right.
Nothing else wrong with it." He said it's not a suicide. Thanks, doc.
Right.
And that he didn't know what caused the cut in his stomach because
Right.
if it was a metal blade, it would have left behind some residue.
Right.
Um, so this is a point where now it starts to get really weird. We see Gautier's eyes move.
Right.
He's in the room with Alex is working on her molecular doodads, whatever she does.
Mm.
So we kind of like cut back and forward between that's scene. Sorry, the with Alex and Gautier and Giles talking
Right.
to
Right.
and so Giles has Leslie plot out where the Bermuda Triangle is and where its location would be on the moon, which I'm not
So
sure.
so can we talk about
I'm not sure how
is
that
it is
works.
this the point where the math comes up?
Yeah, it's yeah.
Okay, so he takes all of the disappearances at every single one of the points in the Bermuda Triangle and says take out every number but the 6 and then goes, "Oh my god, it's 666."
Yeah, I think that part's a little later. I think this part is where he's just mapping out
Right, they're ramping it up.
the where the Bermuda Triangle is and to where it would be in the moon, but I don't know how that would be possible because wouldn't they both be moving?
Remember, we only ever see one side of the moon.
Right.
So
But still would be moving, wouldn't
maybe not.
it?
I mean, this is a documentary. You said so yourself.
Oh,
So
that's
it,
true.
has to be right. Science has to be plausible. So it
Well,
has to be
just
that they line up exactly. Do they not?
just because I'm not smart enough to know, doesn't mean it's not true.
That is true.
So we have the graphics of the Bermuda Triangle, and hey, this is where it would be on the moon, and their ship is in the middle of that area, right? So it's like they're caught in the
Right.
Bermuda Triangle.
Right, because it extends into space.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is what the documentary is telling us. So
It is. It is. It is telling us that.
So
It's a
again,
good thing I'm drinking tonight. I'm telling you what.
so again, we go back to Gautier and Alex. So Gautier,
This this looked this scene between Gautier and Alex, where he attacks her, made me uncomfortable. I'm not gonna lie, because it was like a forced sex scene until you see what he's actually doing. It really looked like he was gonna force her to go down on him. It really did, like through the whole thing.
well, that's where your mind goes.
Can you tell me you didn't think the same thing when you saw it?
What else? I mean, I think it's probably meant to.
I assume it probably did, and it's probably not that big of a deal, but it did make me a bit uncomfortable when I saw it until I realized what was really going on.
But what I liked in this scene, and it happens in a few other scenes in the movie, is the lighting in this scene.
Yes,
It kind of gives me John Carpenter vibes.
the lighting when I don't want to spoil it, but when there is something wrong with the person is really good, is really effective. It really is. For minimalist special effects, they did a really good job accentuating what they actually had.
Right. So yeah. So I thought I'd point that out. So now, as you say, he grabs her. He's going to basically shove her head in his triangle cut stomach, right?
Yep.
But he also talks
He does.
now, and he's like, yell as loud as you want. No one can hear you, because in space, no one can hear you scream. Did you know that, Jim?
I think I've heard that somewhere before.
And this is a part again. You're starting to get like biblical kind of hints here. He says
Right.
that he has many names. The biblical stuff, kind of like the Latin in Event Horizon.
Right. But Alec does ask him, "Who are you?" And
Right.
that's when he says, "I go by many names."
Yeah. So
But you did skip over the power drain that alerts them that something's going on.
you're right.
So there's a power drain right before Gautier wakes up fully and goes after Alex. And that lets everybody know what's going on. And Giles is actually watching the security camera screaming to, as if Alex could hear her.
Yes.
But Alex looks at Gautier and says, "Who are you?" And then all of a sudden, Giles, they cut to Giles and he says, "Everybody, I need you in medical right now." Because
Right.
they're going to go try and save Alex.
And I kind of love the way like the rest of the crew are like looking at Giles like you're fucking nuts, dude.
Yeah, they are not having it. Who was it? Is it Flynn, the security guy, that just kind of is at this point is just like falling apart? He cannot handle it.
Right. So yeah. So basically, he calls everyone in, right? And they go in, and Gautier's just laying on the table.
Right, like he never moved.
Right, and Alex is knocked out.
Right.
So they decide to move Gautier's body down to vaporization.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is where it's actually the doc starts to question Giles's mental state.
Right.
And but Giles is still like, hey, there's something going on with Alex, so strap her down to the bed.
Right.
And don't take the straps off because he thinks that she's possessed.
I don't know. He. What did he say? I think he put it somewhere. I saw her go into him, or I saw him go into her, or something like that.
Right.
I don't remember exactly what he said, but he's trying to convince these people that he saw something weird happen to her, and he does not want her to be able to get up and move around.
Right. Now we have the scene where Giles goes back to Leslie.
Mm.
This is where he's wanting to get all the disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle.
Right.
And he's basically saying to Leslie, "Hey, what's going on with the Bermuda Triangle?"
So is it just me, or with every consecutive scene that showed Leslie, did her zipper on her pleather jumpsuit not inch lower every fucking time they put her on camera?
I was looking at her face. I don't know, Jim.
Oh, I'm sure you were, Mark. I'm sure you were.
That's a robot, you weirdo.
That's exactly my point.
So Leslie's basically like, I don't know, Giles. It's maybe some sort of weird energy in the Bermuda Triangle. All right. So Alex is having a seizure right now. And how many beats per minute is her heart doing?
I don't remember. I did write down the line though, where Doc says the human anatomy cannot withstand the heartbeat of a hummingbird.
Right, 280 beats per minute.
Okay.
That's going to burn some calories right there.
Yes, it will.
But then she's fine, right? So she starts having seizures, and again, this is where the rest of the crew come in, right? And
right.
So again, it's like the doc's like, "Hey, this is crazy. I don't know what's going on. Like this, this shouldn't be able to happen." So Giles then tells Flynn about the discovery and what he's been talking about with.
And what does Flynn say to him? Because I loved this line.
Well, you cut it out with that sci-fi bullshit.
Yep, I loved that. I thought it was great.
It's very self-referential.
Yes, self-deprecating in the highest order.
Right. So Flynn decides he's going to go to the shuttle and get some more spare parts. And he falls into a flooded room.
Can I just say the dimension of the weapons seemed off to me? Like the guns they were carrying, they did not. They just didn't seem to. I don't want to say be regulation size, but they seemed like miniatures almost. No, it just wasn't right.
The one that Giles carries around, that's an actual gun.
Okay.
It's the same one used in I think Die Hard. It's like a Swiss gun or.
Oh no, I'm talking about like the machine guns, like the bigger guns that they had, not just the.
Yeah, it was one of the machine guns.
Oh, okay, sorry, but yeah, they just they look tiny to me. I mean, maybe Never mind. I was going to make a gay joke, but I won't.
So Flynn falls into the flooded room again, salt water, there's seaweed in there.
Right.
And then we have Giles and Doc, I think, are listening in and off screen, which I really liked. You just hear Flynn saying, "What the hell are you doing here?" And we don't know who it is. So they go to find Flynn on the Discovery. They get separated by a door.
Right.
And then Doc starts to go nuts.
He does. He does.
He starts firing his gun, and so, somehow, although they're separated, Giles finds him in like 1 second.
Right.
There you are.
He runs around to the door on the other side of the room. That's all he has to do.
Right.
I mean, it's a cylinder, so there's not many ways to get around.
But eventually they do find Flynn.
Right.
Where is Flynn?
He's hanging.
Hanging?
Mm.
Yeah, he's hanging from the ceiling.
Yeah. Right. And then now they flash back to Space Corp 1, and Alex is awake. And what's happening with Alex, other than her tits being out?
Well, there's somebody with her, a man. But we don't know at this point. They're kept in shadows.
Oh.
So I think it's initially, I think we're supposed to think it's Jennings, right? Because he's really been creeping on her.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so there's a brief sex scene.
Sex, yeah, that's what you call it,
quote unquote, because that's how it's shot, right?
It is.
And again, now we go back to Flynn, right? So we kind of have that scene with Alex and who knows, but we go back to Flynn, and Flynn has the same triangle wound. Now we go back to Alex, and now she's got the scary voice too.
Mm-hmm.
And she kills this person, quote unquote, again using the triangle stomach wound.
Right.
So they find that Jennings outside of Alex's, or the med bay, I guess, right?
Right.
So he's all freaking out. So as an audience member, we're like, okay, is it him? Like, what's he doing, right? Alex is dead inside, and again, she's got that triangle wound. And so at this point, you're like, okay, so they didn't show us that person on purpose.
It's now become a Scooby-Doo episode.
Right. So really, we're down to, is it Jennings or Paxton? Right. Those are really
the or Doc.
No, because Doc and Giles were.
Oh, they were on Discovery, right?
Right. So I like this scene here again.
Yeah.
We have like this almost like the Thing paranoia, where it's like the four guys that are left alive. None of them really trust each other, and they all think one of them's like possessed or crazy or whatever. Right. So I kind of like that little scene. They don't play it off for too long, which I think is good.
No, it wasn't terrible, but it was well done. I mean, it lets you know that everybody's a suspect at this point. Everybody.
Right. And again, Jennings, we already don't like him because he's a creep, but now he's like full crazy because Paxton has a gun, and Jennings is like yelling at him to kill Giles. Like,
right.
That's a little extreme, dude.
It is.
So this is the part where Giles goes to Leslie, and they do this numerology bullshit.
Yeah, you cannot. You have to admit that this whole scene is just forced. There's no logic. There's no common sense, and they don't try to make it make sense. It's just there to draw the connections.
Right. I think it's just to try and reinforce. Right. They're trying to. Yeah. I can see the script writer going, okay, so this is going to be the devil, right? So we're going to have like devil stuff. Triangle, Bermuda Triangle.
666.
We'll have to put in 666 somewhere. We'll do it like this. I mean, if Giles had just said, well, why don't you take all the sixes out to begin with? And then it'll be left with like 333 or 777.
Well, so they discussed there were 665 ships lost in the Bermuda Triangle.
Right.
Space Corps 1 would become 666.
Right.
There's something they did not mention that part. however. But then Giles has them remove. He has them plot numbers on each one of the corners and says, "Now remove all the numbers except 6." Oh my God, it's 666. Literally, that's how the scene progresses. That's exactly what happens.
Yeah, this documentary makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Uh, so again, we have
just in case anybody's curious, the devil resides on the dark side of the moon. That's what this documentary is showing us.
Well, yeah, he doesn't like the light. Remember?
Well, I mean, Tim Curry's devil didn't like the light. I didn't know that all devils didn't like the light.
I mean, we're talking different documentaries here. I think we should just stick with
That's
this.
Yeah. Okay, let's not jump around.
So again, we kind of like Event Horizon. Now we have like the time's running out. I think they've got 2 hours
right
before they crash. So Event Horizon. So they have to go to the shuttle to get relays, kind of like Event Horizon, where they have to go get the CO2
scrubbers
or scrubbers. Yeah.
What does he say though? What is Giles's order at this point when he's going to get the relays?
So because they're still suspicious of him, and they think he's going to take Discovery, I guess.
With no fuel and
no. If he's not back in 30 minutes to use the nuclear satellite to blow up the ship.
Right.
So now we have Giles. So he's in the Discovery. He's looking for the relays. He's in now the water room, and again, nice.
He takes a circuit board off the wall and brings it into the water.
Yeah, they're waterproof in the future, Jim. The future of this year.
I don't care what future you live in; they're not waterproof. They will never be waterproof. Anyway, go on.
This documentary says otherwise. So he gets the relays. And there is a nice little scene where he's in that water room and there's like bubbles coming up
right
under the water, and he's like, "Oh crap, what's happening?" But it's just like a pipe.
Right.
Now, so the door of the room closes, and Giles only has 2 minutes to get back before basically the 30-minute timer runs out. So he goes into the air vents to try and get back. Jennings is really itching to fire those nukes.
He's really itching to blow something up.
Which
but I mean,
these two crafts are very close together.
They are very close together. But again, we have common sense. I take that back. He's trying to follow his order. Like, he's a military guy. He wants to follow his order. He was told to blow the ship in 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So he wants to blow the ship. It's been 30 minutes. What the fuck?
Right, but he also wants just to kill Giles too. So.
Well, I did too, but that's beside the point.
So now we have a scene where we find out who was messing around with Alex, because who was possessed?
Who is possessed?
Yeah, Paxton.
Is it? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Do we find out about Paxton before we find out about Doc?
Right. So yeah. So this.
Okay, I could be. I'm only asking because I don't remember. I legitimately do not remember.
Yeah. This is the part where Paxton tells Jennings to kneel before him.
Oh, right.
But in this scene,
I've seen this the shot on Paxton's face. I have seen so many times and never realized that this was the movie it came from, with the green eyes, or, with those the for lack of a better term, the cat eyes and that lighting on them. I've seen it. I've seen that imagery a million times, and I never knew where it came from.
What's funny about this scene, I don't know if you noticed, is that for a couple of the shots, I guess the contact that they had in one of his eyes wasn't it, right?
Oh,
it's slightly like to the left or to the right.
That.
I'm like, okay, there's low budget. They obviously couldn't reshoot that, so they're just.
I did not notice that.
Right, so now we go to a scene where Doc was running to save Giles, right? Because the time is running out, and he gets him in the airlocks.
Right.
Now we have a scene where Jennings, again going back to the Jennings Paxton, where Jennings shoots Paxton.
Although the gunshot sound started before he actually brought the gun up, that was pretty funny.
Because that's what happens in space.
Okay. I guess I'm just not okay with that.
And so and at this point the shuttle gets blown up, right? With one
Right.
of the
Because the satellite fires nukes.
right, because that's what they do.
And so, are you going to ding your bell?
There.
Do you know why I'm having you ding?
Because the Event Horizon blows up.
Yep, not the Event Horizon, the other one.
Yeah.
Lewis and Clark.
Lewis and Clark, yes. So now we have a shot of Paxton. So he's dead with the triangle wound again, and now we have what I think is the only reason to have Leslie, the automated woman robot, because she says a line here, and it is a classic, Jim. What did you say to Paxton? Do you remember?
Get away from me, you motherfucker.
There we go. Yes. That's the only reason. I think that's the only reason they had her, because just for that line. Everything else could have just been reading off a computer screen.
Well, because they're so good at reading binary.
Well, that's true. I read it. Triangle. So we have Giles and Doc now. The relay system's being destroyed,
Right.
and they get shot at. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Doc has I can't read my own writing. Doc has like a triangle light around him as he's attacked. And then we have a scene where Jennings and Giles fight, and
Right.
Doc kills Jennings.
Right. Well, Jennings goes hunting for Giles.
Right. And
the relay's been destroyed, and he's convinced it was Giles.
Right. So now we have a scene where what's happened to Leslie?
Oh, she's been beheaded.
Right.
But her tits are intact. She just has no head. Just in case anybody's wondering.
Yes, Pearl Leslie.
No
head anymore. Oh.
No head.
So we have now Doc being sketchy, and
how is he being sketchy?
Well, he's just acting sketchy, but here's where the foreshadowing pays off.
So let's wait. Doc is being sketchy because he's so damn calm and okay with everything that's going on.
Right.
Like nothing is bothering him. He doesn't have a care in the world, and he's got a forced smile on his face.
Well, he's happy.
I just said forced smile.
He is happy though. He's the devil. Of course, he's happy.
So go on to your foreshadowing. How does Giles figure out that Doc is the devil?
Yeah, because the Doc is having a cup of coffee, good old cup of Joe.
Oh.
He also pours in a whole heaping helping of deadly milk.
Right.
So Giles says that there's a way home if he can get a message to Houston via the satellite. Dun, dun,
right.
Dun. So this is where Giles is basically planning to blow up their space core, like Event
Ding, ding, ding.
So Doc is now behind him. He's Satan, very clearly. Soul gives him 100 times the power that So he just hangs out in space waiting for spacecraft, and I guess Bermuda Triangle on Earth. But we have the rocket, or one of the nukes, destroys a space core. Now we have our wonderful end shot. What happened at the very end of the movie?
I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember.
So this is a nice little ending. So the camera zooms into the moon, and on the dark side of the moon, and it shows like old boats and old planes on the moon. So that is the tale, the documentary of Dark Side of the Moon. So how many triangles would you give Dark Side of the Moon?
2.5.
Shut your mouth. Remember, we were going to work on you having a heart.
There is no heart in this movie, Mark. There is zero heart.
If you hate this movie, you must hate Event Horizon, because they're both very similar.
That is not true. Event Horizon was done well, had a cohesive story, and good sets. Whereas this had none of that.
It's a cohesive story.
It does not.
It does. If you think
it doesn't.
Okay. So the conceit of Event Horizon is that they send a spacecraft into another dimension. The spacecraft comes back possessed. Right. This one, it's the same one. Rather than doing a jump to another dimension, they just say it's the Bermuda Triangle. It's the same.
And it was the dark side of this machine, this shuttle, mysteriously vanished.
They're both preposterous.
Well, of course they're both preposterous, but it's a
One doesn't
cohesive
make any more
story
sense
in Event Horizon versus this garbage that's forced.
What one doesn't make any more sense than the other.
No, but it's not as forced. Like Event Horizon actually has a flow and makes sense. Even if you have to suspend belief for a bit in order to go, okay, that makes sense. They tried out a new technology and it got screwed up, and this is the worst possible thing that could happen. Whereas this one's just, oh no, it's the devil because that spot on the moon where the ship disappeared matches up perfectly with the triangle on Earth, and there have been 600. The triangle has 666 on it because we took out all the other numbers.
Here's my hot take: Event Horizon is just a bigger budget remake of Dark Side of the Moon.
Oh my god. Okay, well, if so, it's done much better, and I'm okay with that.
Sorry, reimagining. Let's put it like that.
Reimagining, okay, that's fair. I mean, I can see the similarities. I can see your point. I just think your point is bullshit.
Dark Side of the Moon, I like it. It's low budget, and I look at it through that lens. I do think that it very much is a prototype of Event Horizon.
Mm-hmm. I can see that point. I mean,
the acting's fine throughout. I think some of the direction.
Yeah, the acting that is one thing I didn't have any trouble with was the acting. The acting was okay. It was adequate.
Obviously, some of the sets were cheap, but I give it a 6.5 out of 10.
You have a very low bar, my friend. Very low.
I just like movies, Jim.
So do I.
No, you don't. You hate movies.
No, I do not. I do not hate movies. I did not hate this movie. I just did not enjoy it.
Okay, so I think we can move on to what we have watched. Jim,
so kick us off? I just binged the last 2 seasons of Lock and Key. The second season I thought was really well done, almost just as good as the first. The third season was extremely rushed and extremely forced. I did not enjoy it.
And this is the Joe Hill one, right?
Yes. Yep. That is streaming on Netflix. I did just start a new audiobook that I'm very excited about. That's really good. Well, I finished the book 4.5 in the Unconventional Heroes saga. So that was good as always. It's a nice, whimsical, light read or listen. If you want just a little bit of an escape. Now I'm listening to a book called The Lost Gods by Brom. And it's set in 1976. I don't yet know when it came out. I didn't look it up. I don't know what it is about this book. I was hooked from the minute it started. I am so utterly engrossed, and I'm about 3 hours into the audiobook at the moment. It's fantastic.
Is it another fantasy book?
It isn't. No, this is more of a ghost story. It's about a man who gets out of jail. He goes to jail because of a bad drug deal in 1976, and he goes to talk to his girlfriend who wrote him a letter while he was in jail that she was pregnant and that she was going away and that he was absolved of all responsibility to the child. So he gets out of jail. He goes to see her. He convinces her to run away with him and that he is a changed man. So she runs away with him. They go to his grandmother's house to hide out because there's a scuffle and he winds up killing her father's brother who is coming after him in self-defense, mind you. He does it in self-defense. But while after they get to his grandmother's house, he winds up being killed. And in order to save his girlfriend and baby, he has to go through purgatory to find his grandfather, who invited demons into that part of the world, and of which his grandmother is one. And she's planning to eat the baby and the mother. So he's trying to save them. So it has a lot of religious overtones, but it's actually, I think it's so well done. Huh. It's done so well. I honestly, I cannot wait to see where this book goes. I've not been this excited about a book in a very long time.
Huh, interesting. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah. What about you? It's called Lost Gods by Bram. Bram is the author. And it's read by one of my favorite narrators ever, R.C. Bray.
I'm not familiar.
He does a series of books called Helldivers. It's written by Nicholas Sansbury Smith. Mm-hmm. And those are, again, you don't like the term post-apocalyptic, but that's essentially what they are. There was an apocalypse, and humanity had to take to the air because the earth wasn't fit to live on anymore. And the whole series of books is the saga of the last airship having to deal with the mutated creatures on Earth and trying to find themselves a sustainable home because they can't stay in the air anymore. I think book 9 just came out, and it's done. They're all done really, really well, but they are definitely not happy-go-lucky. Everything's going to work out books. They are very realistic and gritty.
Right.
But it's the same narrator, and I love listening to him narrate. I think he's fantastic.
For me, did I mention last? I don't remember if I mentioned last time or not. I finished the Resident Evil series.
You did. We just got some bad news about that yesterday.
Yeah, there's not another one. I don't.
That's
really
right.
I also watched on Netflix a 3-part documentary called Trainwreck about Woodstock '99.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you remember
I do.
Woodstock '99, and it was a big disaster. This one's very much like there's a fire documentary on there, FYRE, about.
Oh, for that music festival that never happened. Yeah.
So those are very kind of similar, but it was a decent enough watch. Back over to you.
You know, there is a good documentary if you haven't seen it, and I'm sure most people have because it was kind of big when it came out, called "Don't Fuck with Cats" on Netflix.
No, I refuse to watch that.
It actually is very good if you're a basic
basic
bitch like myself. I appreciate serial killer documentaries.
I listened to a podcast about that years ago, and I'm like, I'm an animal lover, so I don't want to even think.
And so that's the thing. They don't show the video, number one.
No. I don't even want to be reminded about.
Yeah, but it is spoken about a lot.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I get it.
So what else, Jim?
I don't have anything else that I've currently been watching. Ray found a show that I haven't seen yet that looked really interesting, that maybe I'll have an update for you next week.
Did you say that you watched Prey?
I did, actually. I did watch Prey. I take that back. Yes, I did.
Okay.
That was a really well done Predator flick.
Right.
I mean, I thought there were a few things that I thought were a bit of a stretch, like how quickly she was able to figure out the tech part of it, the tech that this Predator did have. But I thought it was a really well done movie. I enjoyed the hell out of watching that movie.
Yeah, I thought it was very good too.
I don't.
The only thing I wish there was a little bit more practical effects.
I can see that.
Some of the CGI was a little much.
Yeah, a little heavy-handed.
But other than that, I mean, I thought the acting was great, and the cinematography was great. Some of the animal CGI was a little dodgy, but
yeah,
I mean, there's some really great scenes with the predator holding the bear above it. Blood coming down, like you have to do that in CGI. I mean, you can't do it.
But that was a great scene. I'm not gonna lie, I did enjoy that very much.
But I mean, I think it really does show that I would love, like, I'm a big history fan, so I would love to see like a predator in ancient Rome.
Oh, so you must have been a really big Cowboys and Aliens fan, huh?
The Wild West, like American history, doesn't really interest me too much because there's not really too much of it, other than obviously the indigenous population. But if you look at like kind of like when the Western people came over and stuff, I don't know. It's just not that interesting to me. I like sort of like ancient Rome, ancient Greece, Egypt, kind of that era.
Yeah.
That's just.
So were you a big Mummy fan then? Like the Brendan Fraser Mummy?
Well, movies? I mean, that documentary was amazing.
What about the Tom Cruise Mummy?
Oh, it was fantastic.
Oh, I hope you're kidding about that.
Yeah, no, like the Mummy thing, just leave it to Boris Karloff, really. I mean, the Brendan Fraser ones were fine.
It was a fun family movie. I mean, it wasn't anything.
They're more Indiana Jones than horror.
Yeah, right. That's entirely true. It's just a fun, stupid blockbuster kind of movie.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Prey. So we both agree on Prey. Wow.
We do. I think Hella's going to freeze over this weekend. I did hear rumors, and I did not validate this, but they're working on Constantine 2 with Keanu Reeves.
Yes, I heard that too. Yeah.
So I'm excited about that because I did enjoy the first one. Did you watch The Sandman?
I have not started Sandman. I have to start that. I'm probably going to start the Game of Thrones prequel.
I have not started that one yet.
I mean, I probably shouldn't after feeling so like disappointed by the last 2 seasons of that fucking show.
Well, that's the thing though. You had the writers check out the last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones. Like they were over it. They were done. But this is an entirely new writing team, and I've heard nothing but great things about the new season, the new show.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to it.
Now, I'll watch it, but again, I mean, you could say the same thing about Game of Thrones for the first 4 or 5 seasons. I hear great things about it, but whenever you have just the rug pull from under you as far as a fan and these characters and just this rushed, crappy ending, it just leaves you a bad taste in the mouth. But I'll give this one a go, I guess.
You must have been really hurt when The Sopranos ended then, huh?
Never watched it.
Oh, I'm actually surprised by that.
No, I'm not a big
fan. Your predilections for TV shows, I guess that's not all that.
Exactly. So I watched the Netflix new movie that they just released, Day Shift.
Oh, what did you think of that? I've been reticent to put that on.
Jamie Foxx. So I knew Scott Adkins was in it, and I'm a big Scott Adkins fan.
Okay.
Unfortunately, he's only in it for like basically one scene or one extended scene. I mean, it's really much a buddy cop vampire, like wannabe bad boys type thing, which is fine. I mean, it's okay. I just didn't think it was anything above okay. Like,
okay, that's fair.
Yeah, to me, it's a 5 out of 10.
Okay, well then for me that'd probably be a 1 out of 10. So I might give it 5 minutes of my time.
It's 4 out of 10. What else have I watched? I watched The Northman.
Yeah.
So this is Robert.
Two things about this movie bothered me, and I'll get into those.
About this movie?
Yeah, about The Northman.
So you watched it too?
I did. I saw it in theaters.
So what do you think about Robert Eggers in general? So this is
in general, I like the tone of the movie. I like the realism. I did enjoy most of the things in the movie. I liked that the native mythology was worked in. What I did not like is the fact that Nicole Kidman's face doesn't move. She can't emote anymore. And I did think that some of the spirituality was a little forced. But that's really it.
I mean, the spirituality stuff, I don't care because it is kind of mythology, right?
Right.
I did think it was very, I was surprised how almost a template that Conan the Barbarian was for it.
Yeah.
I was wow, they've really taken Conan the Barbarian and then just kind of added stuff on top of it.
Right, and it had the same feel because even Conan the Barbarian back in the 80s had that gritty feel. It wasn't. It wasn't. I mean, there were parts that were hyper stylized, but there weren't. You felt like you were actually out in the wild. You weren't on a set.
Right. It's kind of like the dirty, gritty.
Right. Sort of like
hostile.
It's kind of like what Antlers tried and failed to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I hated Antlers. I thought it was okay up until the very end. I did not think. Sorry. Go ahead. Finish. We'll finish. That's another story. Go ahead. Tell us what you thought of The Northman. Sorry.
No, I thought Antlers was just okay, but not very memorable.
I thought it was garbage.
I've seen worse.
Yeah, I'm sure I have too, but I was very disappointed because I was very excited about that movie.
Maybe this is why I rate movies higher than you. Maybe I've seen a lot more worse movies than you have.
Maybe.
And so I appreciate things in other movies because in comparison to some of the shit I've watched, it's like a fucking Oscar winning.
I'm getting up there now that I've seen this space or this Dark Side of the Moon and the New York Ripper. So I'm getting there.
The funny thing is, in the horror community, Jim, just in general, like the real more nerd, Fulci is very well liked as a filmmaker.
If you're a horror nerd, what are you classifying me as?
You are. To me, I would be like, you've dipped your toe in a little bit.
So I'm your newbie. Is that what you're saying?
No, you're not a newbie. You're just kind of. I don't know what's next. What's next level after newbie or a noob?
I guess neophyte, maybe.
You're getting there. If I have watched I can't even imagine how many horror movies I've watched. Especially during the 80s. Where I would watch vertically, like so many movies, and obviously there's a lot of '80s movies in there.
Let me ask this question.
I have watched probably thousands and thousands of horror movies at this point. I've watched so many, I've forgotten most of them.
I have something I want to ask you. I have a few questions for you. What was,
Okay, well,
we're
hang
doing?
on, let me just wrap up my thoughts
Oh,
on the Northman and Eggers in general. I feel like with The Witch, The Lighthouse, and this one,
mm-hmm.
I like his movies.
Right.
I just don't love them.
Yeah, I did not care for The Witch. I did again. I like the tone and the setting and the realism, but I just didn't care for the movie itself.
I thought The Witch was a good critique and drama based around religious extremism with some horror thrown in.
Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily call it like a straight horror movie. The
Right.
Lighthouse I thought was pretty funny.
I
I
did.
don't.
I've
I
never seen
mean,
it.
I'm assuming he's going for that because it's just so outlandish.
Right.
Um, but it doesn't. There's no doesn't like. I don't really feel like I'd ever want to go back and watch it again.
Right.
It was fine for a one-time watch.
Right.
Same, like The Northman is maybe his most accessible
Mm-hmm.
movie so far. I'm actually surprised they didn't do it in Norse.
Yeah.
And have
That doesn't. That's
everybody
surprising.
Norse. But that's whatever. Kind of like the Mel Gibson, the
Well,
Passion.
they did that right.
Well, they had an option, right? But it was
No, they filmed it twice. They filmed it in the Native American language and I forget, is it Cherokee? What I forget what tribe it was. They filmed it in their native language and they filmed it in English.
right.
So it is not dubbed.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's one thing I was impressed with too, because I actually looked it up with um what's her name? The main character. What was her name?
Africa. I don't remember.
Anyway, so the main character in Prey, her weapon of choice is an axe, a throwing axe.
Right.
And I did look it up, and her family does that. They practice axe throwing. Her last Christmas gift to her father was a set of throwing axes. I thought that was kind of cool.
Interesting.
Right.
But so okay, so Northman, it's almost like I want to like it more than I actually do.
Right.
Because I know that there's a lot of passion that goes into that filmmaking, but I just have to take it as it is. And again, I like all of his movies. I just don't really love any of them.
Okay. So I'm going to break out into a little segment here, Mark. We're going to do a get to know Mark.
Uh-oh.
You ready?
Yep.
First horror movie, Mark.
So the first horror movie that I remember going back, they've kind of merged. So it was either Jaws or Poltergeist.
Okay.
So it was one of those two.
Which was right around the time, because you and I are similar in age, so that's right around the time it would have been on TV or HBO or been accessible to us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking maybe Jaws, just because it was released, 7 years before, and it might have been on TV. Right. But I just can't distinguish between the two in my memory. But there's three pillars that my horror love was built on. It was Jaws, Poltergeist, and when I was way too young to watch it, we went down to a newly opened VHS rental store. And I don't know why my parents were okay with it. They were either they didn't know better, or
because it was the 80s and parents didn't.
Or they were cool. Was American Werewolf in London. So those are the three main ones from my childhood that really stick out and really, I think, kind of drove me towards the horror genre.
What was the last horror movie you saw?
Dark Side of the Moon.
Okay. Your favorite horror movie?
Should I tell people that? Yes.
I think you can at this point. They know you well enough.
Martyrs.
Okay. And what is the craziest horror movie you've seen?
See, that one's difficult because sometimes defining horror, like if you look at like Jodorowsky's like Holy Mountain, like that movie is nuts.
Right.
would I say it's strictly horror? No, but there's horror elements in it. And again, it's probably more art house stuff like that. I mean, you could say, like, even fucking things like Spookies. I don't know if you've ever seen Spookies.
I have not seen it yet.
Like it because they took like two scripts and put them together, so it's like different movies running in one movie, like just little
Okay.
stupid things like that. But it's probably more the art house stuff that's the real kind of crazy. I mean, then you've got like Satan, like the Turkish Exorcist ripoff. You
Yeah,
know,
I'm looking forward to that one.
there's a lot of crazy stuff out there, and like it's hard for me on the spot to try and narrow down some of the like crazier one. I'd need to think about that, but those
Uh,
just off the top of my head.
and the last question I'm going to answer for you. Are you ready?
Hmm.
What is the next horror movie you're going to watch? Do you want to know?
Yes, please let me know.
On our next episode, we are going to be reviewing, and it will not be a spoiler free review for anybody that's wondering. We will be watching Scream 2022.
I guess so, since that's your pick. I
Yes, yes,
will.
it is.
I will watch another Scream movie. I guess. Do you know what that's on, Jim? Is it on? Where is it streaming?
It's on Paramount Plus.
Okay, I think I still have a subscription to that somewhere.
Okay.
Okay, and what is the next movie you're going to watch?
You tell me, sir.
All right, so trying to pick something along with Scream, the new one. Obviously, Scream's gone through many iterations, but so I'm just kind of basing it on the first Scream, where it's a meta type of horror. So I am picking Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon.
I've heard the name. I have not watched it, so that'll be a good check for me.
Right, and like I say, your friend Freddy Krueger is in it too.
I'm looking forward to that. I do enjoy Robert Englund in pretty much anything he's in,
Right.
even in that what is it, 10,000 Maniacs.
Uh,
And the Mangler, as horrible as those movies were, he made the movies.
yeah, Robert Englund's a big old hammy ham.
Yep, I am looking forward to that.
Right. Okay. Is there anything else you would like to discuss, or?
I do want to apologize for how long it took us to get out this episode.
And I had COVID for 2 weeks, and it's been horrible. This is a real horror episode.
So anyway.
And we will see you on the next episode.